Which groundhog where?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, it goes in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Didn't see the chat.
He saw it.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to start learning sponsors also as a notice up, a reminder that as of Sunday and Monday, theoretically, we're supposed to be both days in the old library. Because there's use of this room and use of the base midrash because of certain changes that have to be done for the dinner. Okay, if we can be back in here in time for Monday. No, that's part of the problem. Okay, it's chairs out of there to use for the dinner, so that and therefore the 8:30 meeting is happening in the main show as well. That's why we can't use that at least Sunday. Maybe if they're not, maybe we'll see. Learning sponsors. Year of Learning, Martin Lippman and family in memory of his wife, Malka Chanabat Pinchas. Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Benzev. Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel. Friends of Gideon Luzinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir. Bella and David Adler, in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Cohen. Those who died by our rabbis in America, Sheila. Michael Klein and friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim. Marsha Braun in memory of her husband, Aravi Raphael Ben Shmuel. Family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yudel Ben Baruch Leib HaKohen. Friends and family of Siggy Bessler, Shalom Shraga Ben Dov. Friends of Marvin Weinstein, Mordechai Ozer Ben Yisrael Aharon. Sarah Alpert in memory of her husband, Rav Tzvi Lipa Ben Hillel. The month of Lekova and Leo Zimmer, in memory of her mother, Henya Bat Reb Beryl B. Pizer, in memory of her husband, Harav Yisrael Chaim Ben David. Rabbi Avi and Lorraine Glatt, in memory of Pacey Ackerman's brother, Chaim David Ackerman. Terry and Jill Meltzer, in memory of his mother, Malka Bat Baruch, and his sister Golda Leah Bat David Halevi. Carol and Josh Sanborn, in memory of her father, Yoshua Shia Ben Moshe Yehuda Cohen. Ike and Evelyn Blachor, Hakarat Tover's continuing recovery from recent surgery. Rabbi Dr. Yankee and Malki Honig, in memory of his mother, Rabbanit Hensha Ita Bat Chaim Yehuda. A Week of Learning by Henry Doller and family, in memory of her mother, Gil Bat Yaakov. By Michael and Judith Poretsky, in memory of his brother, Chaim Tzvi Ben Gershon. By Judy Schiff, in memory of his mother, Chaya Chava Bat Menachem Mendel. Okay, today is the second day of learning by Golda and Michael Breben, in memory of her uncle Isaac Ben Zev Wolf. By Keith and Judy Zauder, in memory of his mother, Hannah Henshabat Avram. By Milton and Tamar Fishberger, in memory of his mother, Sosha Bat Moshe Halevi. Minashamas Heaven Aliyah, Crank Rafia Velti Yeshiva Shematlia, Makobane Israel Good Bench. Yeah.
Okay, we're at the Mishnah. At the Mishnah.
So I'll be here Tuesday, Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Oh, rest the sheep Tuesday morning.
I like that.
Sunday morning, won't be looking at that.
Yeah. I'm not sure where.
You're right.
About just a little bit down to Mishnah on Tzadi Beis Amud Beis. Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah. Apple Pisha no say low, even though we said, look, so much you pay for this or this embarrassment you pay this, even though you paid the money in Nimchalo, that doesn't forgive the person, atone for the person. Paying the money is that you have to pay the money, but it doesn't mean you're forgiven for doing wrong, for the sin. Achivakish mimeno, a person has to ask for forgiveness from a person, even if you hurt the person, you paid the money. The fact that you damaged them monetarily, you pay the money, that's your obligation, but it doesn't undo the fact that you did wrong. You have to ask forgiveness. And where do we see it from? We see that it only works after you ask forgiveness. Now, by Abimelech, the king of Gerar, he had taken Avram's wife Sarah, and Hashem had a whole conversation with him. He said, "Listen, what he wanted from me, it wasn't my fault, etc., etc." Hashem in the end tells him, he says, he says, Hashem, give back the wife of this man because he's a prophet and he's going to daven for you, okay, etc. So it doesn't make any sense. He said, until you, and it means what? You have to ask him forgiveness to such a degree that he will finally daven for you. I mean, so he had to ask for forgiveness. That's how they learn. You see at the end later, after a few people afterwards, it says he asked him forgiveness, and then he davened. I mean, sorry. How do we know that any person on the other side, when a person asks you for forgiveness after they hurt you, how do we know if you don't forgive them that person is called cruel? That person should never. It says by his Kal Avraham Elohim, Hashem davened to Hashem, and Hashem healed Avimelech Bagomer. So simple way to learn is what Avram went so far. Not only did he forgive him, but he davened for him. So of course you should at least what? You should at least forgive the guy. That you have to do. Avram was outstanding. He forgave him and he davened for him on top of everything else. And that's a classic thing. Omer, if a person's furthermore, we said Omer, if a person says to another person, blind my eye, Kateas Yodi, cut off my hand, Divorce Ragli, break my leg, and the fella did it, Chayv has to pay. We don't take it seriously if nobody says that. Almanas liftar, but if he says do those things, damage me, and in order to be exempt from payment, Chayav, okay, and even if he said what, you're not going to have to pay, he still has to pay. Kras Ksusi, Shavoras Kadi, if he says what, tear my garment, break my pitcher, Chayav, okay, then the person has to pay what he damaged, okay. Almanas liftar, but if there he says what, in condition that you won't have to pay pater, then he's exempt. We'll explain what the difference is. Yeah, we'll have to explain. We'll explain later. I say Cain leash plani. Let's say somebody says to somebody else, go and damage that person. Okay, almanas liftar. So you won't have to pay what he can. Who is he? But he means to say, I'll cover the damages. No, go hurt that man with the understanding you'll be exempt in the sense that I'll pay for it instead of you. Hi, it doesn't matter. The guy who did the hurting, he has to pay. Whether it's damage to the body or by the money, but whether what. The person has to pay. There's no proxy to do averas. Tanarabana we learn. Call Elusha Amru. All these cases that we said earlier, before we said that you pay a seller, you pay 100, you pay 200, you pay 400. He says the May Boshto. That was the money for the embarrassment. Aval Saro, but the emotional pain that he feels in his heart, that you paid for the damage of embarrassing the person, but for the emotional anguish, Afila Hebi Kol Elin Levias, even he brought all the fattest sheeps. Sheba Olam, even to be the fattest sheep and the fattest sheep and all that exist. And Imchalo, you're not going to get forgiven. Until the person has to ask forgiveness. It's not good enough to just pay the money. You have to ask forgiveness. She never says Hashev Eishes Aish Kinabihu. It says what? Return the wife of the man, and it's like a non sequitur. It's because he's a prophet. Okay, because he's a prophet, he's Palabadach, and he's gonna daven for you. But so it doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? Return it because he's a prophet. Okay, Eishes Nabi Boy Ladure, Eishes Achalo Boy Ladure. I understand. You have to return the wife of a prophet, not the wife of another person. You can't get anybody's wife. So what do you mean return because he's a prophet? Amr Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Amr Yocham. So here the word prophet is used to be what, like a teacher. You have another place like by Moshe and Aaron we see such a thing. You return the man's wife, period, because that's you have to do it. But the Kal Martin is what you said previously. Remember the conversation between God and Avimelech. He says, listen, he says, are you going to punish me even though I was righteous? Even though I was righteous, it wasn't my fault. I asked him, he said it was his sister who would have won for my life. Even if I would have done wrong, it wasn't me. I said, get out of it, it's no taina. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. He says, Agoyim Tzadik Taro Alu Omer. He says, are you going to kill a nation even though I'm righteous? Hello, Omar. He says, Achasi, she's my sister. He got me and she also said, he's my brother. So how was I supposed to know? Okay, Hashem says, get out of here. Don't give me stories. Nabiyu, Avram is a Nabi. He's a teacher. V'kralimin, he's already publicized this good character. Everybody knows. Achsanai Shabala here. When a guy comes to stay in the city, a sojourner, So what do you ask him first? Here, do you need something to eat? You nothing. After you ask to eat, you need something to drink. Do you ask him about his wife? You ask him, is it your wife or is it your sister? Obviously, you're supposed to ask the person who's coming in. Ask him what he needs to eat or drink. Yeah. And you should have learned from Abram, and you shouldn't ask that. You shouldn't have. You're completely. You're a prost. You're a barbarian. You're acting uncivilized. You don't ask a guy about his wife, okay? And therefore, we learn a very interesting thing. It's very amazing what the Ben Noah, and you see what, and you see that that his claim that he told me is meaningless. We don't care. Hashem says you should have known yourself. You should have asked. You should have asked. You should have been talking about that stuff. And therefore, we learn. And from here, we learn the Ben Noah Shenarag. A Noachite is killed, okay, because what he should have learned and he didn't below limit, he didn't learn. When it was available to him, he didn't do it. He gets killed for it. It's his own problem. Don't give me those claims, Hashem. That's a lot of hooey. Now, the pasuk's talking about the punishment that happened to Abimelech and his household. So he uses a double language because it was blocked up. It was blocked up or doubly blocked up. What does it mean? So we're going to see. First, we're going to say doubly blocked up by the men, then the men and the women. We'll see. Amar Belazi, he says, why blocked up twice? Echos be'ish, one that the shich was there, one that the semen of men wouldn't come out. Okay, Ishtayim be'isha, the second one, the woman that what shich was there. Now it's obviously not talking about what we call semen, but whatever has to be whatever has to do its job to become fertile that wasn't happening in the woman. The leda and also what and the baby that was already formed wouldn't come out. So there's two by the, and that's also because there's an extra language. It says also every womb. It says closed, and the womb. So you have three. You always get an extra one by the woman. Okay, but Masnisa Tana, we learned in a brisa, Steinbish. No, the doubling one is two by the men. Shichwa Tani, but also the semen wouldn't come out, and also urine. Shlosha Bisha, the woman, I told you, gets an extra one because the womb. It says because it says the womb also. So you get three. Shichwa Zera, whatever the fertility Zera, Uktanim, and also urine didn't come out of later, and they couldn't give birth. Ravino Amai says Shalosh Beish. No, there were three by men. Okay, Shichwa Zera, Uktanim, Upi Tabas. Was what? Because it was every orphan, so to speak. So so therefore what? So it was three by the man. Semen, he couldn't urinate and also not defecate. Arba Bisha, there were four by a woman. Okay, four by a woman. The woman what couldn't the fertility semen beleda and letting the baby out of tanim urine upita bas and couldn't defecate. Bad korechem. Okay, it says what opposite every womb. Amri Dereyane, they learn what every womb, not just human, even non-human. Afili Tanagosh, even the chickens in Avimelech Saflo Tila Beitz also, it wasn't laying its egg. Okay, Amarle Rabbi the Rabbi. Right now, I want to just we're about to have a series of things. It happens here. We're going to have it later in Sanhedrin, and when we'll get there, Mitzvah Hashem Sanhedrin, I hope I have something mamish incredible today that I heard firsthand. Incredible thing. But we see that the Gemara, the rabbis of the Gemara wanted to ratify things that people said. Here was a saying, a common saying. We're going to hear, where do we see a source in the Torah for this common thing that people say? So what do you mean? What the common folks say, we want to ratify it, say, that must be in the Torah someplace? People say all kinds of crazy things. What is it? So the simple answer that they answer, or one answer that they answer, is that when everybody says something, when it's such a common thing, that's clearly wisdom. And the Torah contains all wisdom. We have to find it in the Torah. I would add to you another point, and that is here. We see that the intellect of a human is sanctified. Why do I? And it's holy. Hashem ratifies here. Throughout the Torah, we tell us what's truly common sense. It's not every idiot, you understand, but what's truly common sense. It has the power of Torah law. In Svara Lamali Kro, I don't need a pasuk in the Torah when it's a human common sense. Hashem sanctified the human intellect. He gave us the power of the power of the Torah, the power of interpreting the Torah. So when human beings as a whole say something, hey, you better check it out. There's something happening over here. That's another way. That's according to that opinion. But I want to add to you something else, and it's happened to me more than once. Years and years ago, I had a student who was a professor of logic, and he was Egyptian. He had grown up in Egypt, and in a non-religious home, in Egypt, he'd grown up, a Jew, but not religious home. But every 2 minutes, he would quote to me something his mother said, the folk saying, And mom, this was a Gemara. This one was a pasuk. This was this. Now, what I want to explain to you, the same thing here. Why are we so makpid on minhagim, etc.? The Ramah twisted himself into a pretzel. You should know to certify, you understand, and to justify minhagim. He went crazy to do it. And I want to tell you what the reason is. The reason is because once we see that in a legitimate Jewish community something happened and there were great rabbis there, they didn't let these things pass under their noses indiscriminately. When we saw the Klal Yisrael behaved a certain way under the auspices of the rabbis, we know, hey, that was not nothing. And I told you there's a great, wonderful piece. I hope we'll see it one day. There's a wonderful responsum in the Igros Moshe where he's explaining the meaning of Shema of the pasuk in Shema Yisrael, which is beautiful. And at one point, in order to back up his translation of the pasuk, he quotes the Yiddish Taich of the Siddur. The Yiddish Taich. What? Wait. Those were the Yiddish Taich was written from people who didn't know. He didn't know. He said no, but since that Siddur was the Siddur of Klal Yisrael under the auspices of, but not just that they edited it. That was the Siddur they used. The great rabbis knew about it. He says that although I told you, he does correct that even also, but he corrects it a little bit. But that's more like it's a finesse. So that's number one. So things that happen in Klal Yisrael, hey, it's not stam. And I want to tell you something else. To such a degree, that's why we bend over backwards for minhag. Sometimes a minhag is minhag shtus. It happens. It's sometimes it's stupidity, but usually things that Klal Yisrael adopted under the watchful eye of great rabbis. We don't throw in the garbage can so quickly. The great rabbis were there. They would have stopped it. There's a reason why that was happening. But number three, and this is the last one I'm going to tell you, which is really scary. Here, this thing with schoolers, it drives me crazy. Believe me. I scream and yell about it. You understand sometimes, but here, what's going on? It's the same thing. Don't you understand? Sometimes you'll see for you, what seems to be some insane formula, etc. Here, rabbis, I told you, Yisrael Salanta would say, he says, the Gemara says this is forbidden. They say there's no such Gemara in the Shas. The Gemara doesn't say that. He say maybe in your Gemara it doesn't say it, but in mine does. He'd open up the Gemara. When he learned the Gemara, it was clear that it did say that. Once he learned it, you understand it. Now you have to understand many times, and that's what you have to see. Not like these mystical stories and and twinkling rabbis and glowing, with gleaming eyes. No, here the rabbis had formulas. The Gemara taught them formulas, and when they told you things for you, it was shocking. They had a formula. It was a scientific formula from the Gemara. They knew there's certain rules in the Gemara. That's the way it goes. And if when they said for you, oh my goodness, such a mystifying thing, they had a formula, a mathematical formula from the Gemara. They know under these circumstances, as a result, they can tell you what happened or what's going to happen. Not because he prophesied, no, because he applied the formula of the Gemara. Now, what happened at times was there were rabbis in history who gave formulas which were clearly derived from the Chazal, but the people only had the recipe. The common people continued the recipe. Oh, it's a special thing. It was a Gemara. It was a Gemara. You said it was a Gemara. It was a Medrash. It was a principle there. But the people, the common folk, you're right, didn't have it anymore. So all these things. What I'm going to tell you is here. Why is the Gemara bending over backwards? You understand? Bending. And you see, it's not here. So I'm going to have it again. Why is the Gemara bending over backwards to ratify what the common folk, what people say? So I tell you, one they say, but here because if all people say a thing, Hashem sanctified the human understanding. There must be something there. But more than that, I want to tell you something else here. We tons of times what people say, really the whole starting point was for the Torah. They don't know what they're saying, but that's the common folks say, but that wasn't just a common expression. All Jews say that. You know why? Because the Jews who understood took it out of the Torah. So now the common people are continuing to repeat, or everyone's continuing to repeat these as if they're aphorisms. They're not. They're really Torah formula, but they don't know that they're Torah formulas. You see what I'm saying? That's the word. So just a word to the wise here. So now let's embark. Amalei Rabba, but you have to understand that's why I'm careful myself. But sometimes I scream and yell. When I moved to Phoenix, I went nuts. They called me up. They said, listen, now when the pregnant lady goes to the mikveh in her 9th month, they want to know what's the halachas of how she goes. I said, what? All the time in Eretz Yisrael, from the time I was 20 years old, we used to kill ourselves that a pregnant woman should ever have to go to the mikveh. It was considered dangerous. We never wanted to do it. If there was any shiloh of sending a pregnant, we would move heaven and earth, not to send a pregnant woman to the mikveh ever. We killed ourselves over it. We used to kill ourselves not to send a pregnant woman to the mikveh. And then so they should call me. Yeah. Now, when the pregnant women go to the mikveh in the 9th month, I said, what? Yeah, that's got a whole. That's supposed to be a school. This that whole story. So I said, what? I said, what? So I said, where's that from? They said, everybody does that. I said, really? I didn't know that. Tell me. So I said, where's the source? They said, oh, there's a source. Where? I said, on a website. So I look up the website. It says it. I said, so I write to the website. I write to them. Said, thank you very much. I said, Huey, where is this? Where is the source for this? They said, oh, it's in such and such a book. Oh, good. Hashem, I'll see. So I open up the book. What's the book? The book is a phone book of segulas. It's just a list of segulas. It's a book that lists segulas. Anybody heard of them? So I write back. I said, this is not the source. This is just listing things. The guy says, that's all I'm responsible for. It says it in the book. Goodbye. So that's not a source. What are you talking about? But I'm telling you, but even so, why am I careful? Because for the reason I told you, because even segulas often really were derived. What we call segula was derived by Torah formula by a chacham, by a true Talmid chacham. But the people only remember the magic, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? They don't remember the math behind it. The math that backs it. Okay, good. So he says, where did this come? So first one is the rabbis, okay, and then you're going to see, and I preempted. We're going to start with the rabbis, then we're going to start with then we're going to go to the people. Where do we get this idea that the rabbis say, and you see exactly what I'm telling you? They derived the formula. Here, we know the rabbis always say this. Anybody who needs mercy about something, and he asks mercy on his friend, and he needs it, you pray for your friend who needs it, and you get answered first. Amarle said to him, I'll tell you why. Because it comes, you'll see what's connected to what came previously. He learned by Eov. Eov's friends did not talk properly, about Hashem. And they were going to be punished just like Eov was punished. So, but Eov prayed for them. It says, Hashem Shabash Eov. Hashem gave back what Eov had lost, to take away the punishment, when he prayed for each of his friends. Amarle, so he said, Hashem said to him, he said to him, Rava said, listen, you're going to prove it from Eov. So I can prove the same formula with this rabbinic formula. It's from a different pasuk. At the end of that, where we were learning before, it says Avram prayed to Hashem, and Hashem healed Abimelech and his wife, Vimosov and his maidservants, etc. Gomer. And then it's written, Hashem Pakala Sarah Kashamar, and then it was Hashem finally answered Sarah, that she's going to have a baby, that she's able to have the baby, that she's going to have the baby. So you see what that when they needed help with having babies, and Avram paid for them, and he's the one who got answered. Kasher Avram Avimelech, okay, the same way. Oh no, it's Kasher Avram, as Avram said, okay, in his prayer, okay, the prayer that he made for Avimelech, that's how Hashem answered him. Amalei Rabbi Mari. This is when I found. Now I get there. Now we move into the more thinner ice. What about what people say here? What are these folk sayings that people say? I say the word folk. What are the common saying? When people pull up the thorns, they end up damaging also the cabbage, which is valuable. Amalei, which means what? When the Shoim get it, the tzaddikim get it. Amalei d'chsiv, as it says, lama to, because Hashem said, Yirmiyahu said to the generation of wicked people, lama to riba, what are you fighting with me for? Hashem says, what are you fighting, arguing with me? He says, you all sinned against me. What? Everybody sinned against them, even the tzaddikim, even Yirmiyahu. What Rashi has two different ones. Even Yirmiyahu, even the tzaddikim. You see what? But once we mention the Shoim, the tzaddikim get pulled in, they also get damaged. Amarle says, we say you get it from there. I say you can back up that common saying from this pasuk. Kadosh Baruch Hu said after the people did not follow the proper behavior when it came to the mun, he says, how long are you going to continue? How long are you going to continue refusing to keep my mitzvahs and my Torahs? What, included Moshe and Aaron in there? Everybody, what do you mean? Even the tzaddikim, the tzaddikim got mixed in. So there's a source for it. But now we're just repeating conversation between the same people. He says what? He says when Yosef had to exhibit his brothers, he had to present his brothers to Pharaoh. He took 5 of his brothers, but he miksei from the lesser somehow, from the edges of his brothers. He took five men. Maninu Chamisha, who's the 5? Amar Lei. So he says there's different explanations here, but we're going to learn one. Hacham Rav Yochanan, this is what Rav Yochanan says. Osher Shulchan B'Shemos. Who did he choose? He chose the weakest brothers, the ones whose name, when Moshe blessed the Shvatim before he died, all the Shvatim that he doubled up the name because they're so weak, he had to double them up to strengthen them. So therefore, what? So he says the Shvatim whose names were doubled by Moshe, who were the weakest brothers, those are the ones that he presented to the Pharaoh because he didn't want them to be drafted to Pharaoh's army. So he sent a bunch of weak guys. Who is that? Dan, Zvul, Gad, Asher, Naphtali. Okay, and they were weaker, and therefore what? So that's the ones that he showed to Pharaoh. I said, whoa, wait a second. You want to tell me the names that were doubled by Moshe are the weak ones? Yehuda is the strongest one. Yehuda's the lion. What are you talking about? He's the strongest brother around. What are you telling me? His name was also doubled. Amar Lacey said, no, you made a mistake. There, the doubling, it was not doubled to double the blessing. It was doubled there for an entirely different reason. And this, I spoke to you a few weeks ago about it, but I'll mention it again today. He said, what? It was doubled up for an entirely different reason, for the sake of, not because Yehuda was weak, because he had a second problem, which he was excommunicated. The Amar of Shmuel ben Nachmani, Amar of Yonasan, my dichtiv. I have a funny thing. When you see the bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu to Reuven, it says Yechi Reuven v'Yoma. So Reuven should live and not die. Okay, behave mesav mispar, and then it says v'zos Yehuda, and that's what Yehuda gets. So is that now? So what is Yehuda doing over here, connected to Reuven? So that first mention is something you'll see is connected to Reuven that's going to help Yehuda, but not connected to being weak. All the brothers, their bones were coming up to Eretz Yisrael, just like Yosef. But what? But Dafka, the bones of Yehuda, his bones were rattling in the coffin they're bringing up. Okay, why is that? Because he made a promise to his father, and he put himself into a possibility of what? That he's going to become totally excommunicated, and nidui, excommunication, even on condition, and even if you fulfilled what you promised, it doesn't matter; it still comes true. So he was in this horrible state. Moshe, because of Rachmi. So Moshe, when he had to make a bracha for the bones of what? Of Yehuda. He said, he says, Master of the universe, Migar Reuven Shiyoda. Reuven, when he finally admitted the sin that he moved his father's bed, you know where he got where got the impetus from? It was Yehuda. It was because of Yehuda. Yehuda, when Yehuda admitted to what he did wrong with Tamar, remember with the Tamar, when she tricked him to live with her and said she was going to get killed. When Yehuda came out and admitted to his sin, that inspired Reuven to admit to his sin. So Hashem is saying, so what are you doing? He says, and that's gonna is that and now that so the whole way that Reuven got out of his problem was that he admitted the whole way that Reuven admitted was because he learned from Yehuda, and now Reuven's bones are together and Yehuda's bones are rattling around. Is that nice? Miyad Shama Hashem call Yehuda. So Hashem it continues. Hashem hears the voice of Yehuda, and therefore what? His bones found their bonding place, and they came back together again. Okay, okay. Now this is what I mentioned a few weeks ago, if you remember. Here, okay. So he's starting to shape up. Still, they wouldn't let him into the holy yeshiva above. Okay, Moshe continues speaking. Bring him to his people. Let him come to the yeshiva shalmala. He couldn't understand what the rabbis were talking about in the base medrash. He couldn't get it. Okay, and he couldn't participate in the conversation. Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Yadav Ravlo, his hands are full." Okay, he has the ability to fight out and to be able to argue out Torah. Okay, he said, that even after he was able to do that, he still wasn't able to say the halacha properly. He says, and then Moshe gave the last bracha, he was able to get it. And remember, I told you that's the Chafetz Chaim says from here. He says this is an argument that's unassailable, and there's no Jewish man that can ever have an excuse for not educating his children in Torah. He said if a parent will have a child and the child can't speak, they'll take him to every specialist in the world and pay every penny and borrow and beg to find a refuah for the kids to be able to speak. You see here, imagine if a kid's going to go to the next world and they come to the Shir Shema and he can't open his mouth. He said, "What father's heart's not gonna break open in the worst pain? What father could stand and see his kid? He's going to come to the Shir Shema and can't speak? Who's going to see his kid can't talk Torah?" He says this is an argument unassailable, and every person in the world has to educate his kid in Torah. There's no way out of it. Amalei Rabbi Ramari. So the answer was Yehuda's name wasn't doubled because he was weak. Moshe was saying, "Hey, Hakadosh Baruch Hu put his bones together." Yes, it was a whole different story. Okay, it was about the particular story of Yehuda not being excommunicated. Amalei Rabbi Ramari. What about this common saying that people say? Poverty follows poverty, just one thing after another. It sounds like an aphorism, but it really what? Amar Lacey says no. He says, I'll tell you what it is. The Tanan, because we learned when it came to Bikurim, a very interesting thing. Ashir, we learned in the Mishnah in the Mishnah. Ashir Mevim Bikurim Bakaloso Zov was Kesef. Here, the rich people brought golden containers with the Bikurim to give, and they gave such honor to the Bikurim. To the but they use gold to give honor to the bikurim. But the poor people didn't have gold, so they had to bring a willow branches, peel, wicker basket. But the poor people, they gave both the basket and the bikurim to the kohanim. Okay, but whereas the rich people took home the golden containers they took home. Now, what's the first? But it's not stam. It's not stam. What is it? Because for the rich people, the gold itself was so much honor that was sufficient out of the bikurim. All you had to do was bring them. But the poor people, since the wicker or whatever you call it, was not such an honor. The only way to give the honor was to completely nullify the basket to the bikurim and give it. Yeah, that was their way of giving honor. So they lost out. Yeah, gave away. But that was the only way to give the honor. You know, gold, it's enough. You can do it. Okay, and therefore what? Amalei says, "Atar might be also." He says, "Therefore what?" So I see they saw at least not from a possible, but they saw from the principle of the. So you see a principle that what the poor people, not only they poor, they have to lose their basket. Why? Because they're so poor. The only way they can give honor is by letting go. The rich people can give honor by lending the basket and taking it home.
Statistically,
poor
people give a greater percentage of their income.
That's interesting.
It's universal.
I didn't. Yeah.
Looks very great.
Take the stuff out of the poor man's basket, you would see how never it is.
Oh yeah.
In the basket.
And that's a nice word. That's a nice word.
Kosher Mishpat says you're not allowed to do that.
The mix. All right. Amarle, he said to him, Ata might be awesome. So you learned it from there. The poverty follows poverty. The poor person has to give it away, and the rich person doesn't. He says, I'll show you the principle. Poverty follows poverty. From here. Here he's going to go mamish to the chumash. You know that the Mitzorah, he has to tell everybody, the leper, he has to go call out to everybody. I'm tummy. He has to go tell everybody. Tummy, Ikwe. He has to call out to everybody that he's tummy. So what? Bad enough that he has the disease. Now he has to also humiliate himself. Okay, he says also has to humiliate himself. Also, you see, so poverty follows poverty. Now we're back to a rabbinic common saying. Where is this that the rabbis are wont to say? Hashkein bechol. Get up in the morning, eat. Always eat breakfast. Eat early in the morning breakfast. In the summertime to protect yourself from the heat. Or in the wintertime to protect yourself from the cold. And people say what? And the people say what? Shitin Ruhuti road. You can have 60 guys running and they'll never catch up with a guy who ate breakfast. Anybody broke bread in the morning, he's gonna be ahead of everybody. But eat breakfast. Okay, the seed. So where do we get it from? So it's from the Navi Yeshayahu speaking about the ingathering of the exile. It says that what they're not going to be hungry. They're not going to be thirsty because they ate and drank. And the heat and and the sun are not going to. They're going to be protected from the heat. See, Amalei Ravi says, I might be also. He said, you learn from there. I get it from here. It says you should serve the Lord your God. Let's talk about Kriya Shema of Shachris and davening. Okay, and that's you serving Hashem. And then what to tell me? Okay, and he's going to bless your bread and your water. This is eating bread and salt, and a measure of water, a pitcher of water. And then after that, what does it say? I'm going to take away the illness from amongst you. So you see what? Eating breakfast takes away the illness. Okay, but Tanya, we learn, okay, machala zu mara. What is that machala? It's mara. V'lamanik or shmo machala. Why is it called machala? The answer is sheshmonim v'shlosh chalam yispa, because it has 38 illnesses in it. Machala begematria hachihava. And gematria, if you take the gematria, it is 83. 83. Okay, v'kulim pas b'melach. Okay, and all these illnesses. Pas b'melach shachris v'kita shamayim bevatlis. You're going to eat bread and salt and the water in the morning. It's going to nullify all those illnesses. My almost number of what about this saying of the rabbis? If your friend calls you a donkey, put on a saddle. Amarle. He said to him, he says, where's that from? Okay, no, but what it really means is what? What it really means is what? If the guy, if a person says something to you, you admit it, you don't answer back, or you answer in kind. Amarle says because when Hagar was running away from her mistress, so the Malach says to her, Hagar Shivcha Sarai. The Malach says Hagar, the slave woman of Sarai. He says, Amy Zabata, we come before we are going. But Tomer, she said, the Sarai Gabirti said, you're right, I'm a slave. From Sarai, my mistress, I'm running away. So when people speak to you that way, you answer back in kind. Amarle, Rabbi Barbari. Where did you get this? What people say? If you have a negative trait or negative history, spit it out. Yeah, say it right away. Okay, say it right away. You say it before others. Why? Okay, Amalei says, I'll tell you why. Dichtiv, as it's written, Vayomer Eved Avraham Anochi. You'll hear Eliezer. What do you say right away? He says, look, I'm a slave. Get it out. You don't have to hide it. Say it. Amalei Rabbi Mari. There's a lot of metaphoric explanations of that. Amalei Rabbi Mari. Minai Milsa Dami Inshi. What about this that people say? Common expression. Shafel ba'azel ba'avza ve'eni mitayvse. He says, even though the Ben Abbas it goes low, but its eyes are looking up. What does that mean? It means it's something to teach you what it means to say what you never stop trying. No matter what situation you're in, you're always looking for success. You're always looking to be successsul. Amarle Amarle said to him, Dichsiv, as it's written, V'heiti b'Hashem la'adoni v'zacharta samasecha. What happened that when the wife of Naval, she was mamish bringing a gift to David against her husband's wishes. And she still was smart enough. She was really lousy situation. She's trying to figure out how to marry David Melech. And Hashem, when Hashem will be good to you, you'll remember your maidservant. Later on, my husband dies, by the way, I'm available. He says to him, I'll be available. But you never stop being positive. My rabbi of blessed memory, one of his children was born with phenomenal birth defects, not mental, mentally sharp as the sharpest could be, but phenomenal birth defects. Her body was so twisted, she could only crawl, and she was so adamant on living her own life. Her knees were and her arms were always full of blood from crawling in the streets. She was so adamant, and she had operations and things like that. Finally, I'm only telling because it was told publicly. My rabbi told it publicly, but at the Ofra. Yeah, I told this public at the Ofra. It was public. So he said when it came time for her, she's old enough to marry. The parents sat her down and said, "Listen, you have handicaps. They said, what flaw would you accept in your husband? You're not going to be able to just get a guy who's, what flaw would you accept?" She looked up with a hesitation. She said, "It's okay if he wears glasses." She said, "It's okay if he wears glasses." Who'd she marry? There was a guy, I told this to you. There's a guy, he was younger. He went into the Beis Medrash and he didn't come out for 7 years. He went to Beis Medrash. He didn't come out for 7 years. The guy was tall, tall as could be, like a football player, a strapping, tall, handsome, mighty guy, and he wore glasses, and that's who she married. Yeah, that's what she said. Okay, they told us to rob him. They said, "What flaw you're not going to get? What flaw would you accept in your shidduch?" She said, "Okay, if he wears glasses." She got a powerful guy. Amalei Rabbi Bar Mari. No, what is this folks saying that people say? Shitin tichle matil alakacha dekel mati lekacha the kal chave shema. Here, there's 60 illnesses come to a person. When you hear your friend eating and a person doesn't eat, it's very detrimental to the person's health. When a person hears the sound of another person eating and they don't eat, and he's not eating, right, it's very damaging. Amalei, okay. So that when those 60 illnesses come to a person who hears the sound of his friend eating and doesn't eat. Amarle, so he says to him, okay, what happened by Nasan and Avi, what's written, when he is complaining that Adoniyahu didn't invite him to the meal, so they're learning what, not simply he wasn't invited, but what they heard, they knew they were eating. All us guys, Shlomo, Avdecha, Shlomo, Lokar, he didn't call us to the meal. The point is what? He says, and what happened was we knew they were eating and we didn't eat. Amarle, he says, Atam, I mean, awesome, you learned from that pasuk? I learned it from this pasuk. It says what? When Yitzhak was marrying Rivka, it says, Yitzhak brought it to the tent of his mother. And what's written afterwards, and then Avram went out and he took another, he had added to his wives and went out and he married Keturah. So there's two ways to learn this. One way is what? That Avram, since Yitzhak got married already, Avram's got to get married. Here's the sound, he has to get married. Or it's the other way. That Avram knew he had to get married. Avram knew he had to get married, but he waited. Why? Because if he would have got married, then it would have given pain to Yitzhak for not getting married. So he waited after Yitzhak was married. Then he got married, so he wouldn't give the pain of Yitzhak hearing the sound of him eating, so to speak, when he wasn't eating. That's two ways. Amalei Rabbi Marmari. Where does this saying come? That's a common saying. He says the wine belongs to the master, belongs to the king. But who do people are beholden to? They're beholden to the servant who pours it. Everybody knows. You want to get something done? You go. Who do you go to? Secretary. When I got married to my present Rebbitzin, so it was a whole story. I had a bunch of little kids and a whole story, and I was late, and I tried to get a wedding license in Eretz Yisrael within 14 days of the wedding. You're not allowed. It's against the law. It's against the rabbinate rules. You have to be more than 14 days. They won't give it to you. So I come there. They tell me the clerk tells me right away. Sorry, buddy, you can't get. I said, what do you mean? I got to get married. I said, go talk to go talk to the chief rabbi. I didn't go to the chief rabbi. I went to the secretary of the chief rabbi. This is true. It's true. Sometimes you have to. If you know Eretz Yisrael, this is what we always do in Eretz Yisrael. Never go to the boss. Go to the secretary. I went to the secretary of the chief rabbi, and I poured my heart out and told her what happened to me, and I have to get married. And she says, "You're going to get it. I'm going to make sure." She says to me, "She didn't." But no, not after she spoke to the chief rabbi. She told me, "You're going to get it." She said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to 100%." Hey, we're just teasing. I'm just teasing. What's the rule? The wine belongs to the master, but who are people thankful to? To the servant who pours it out. That's how they get it. Amalei. He says, so where does that saying come from? Because it's written. Take a look. It's very interesting. Who was Here, you're going to put your hands onto Yeshua, and so to speak, and ordain them, or install him. Okay, and all Klal Yisrael is going to fear, etc. And what's written afterwards? Yeshua. It's written Yeshua ben Nun Malei Ruach Chachma, and it says Yeshua ben Nun's full of Chachma. Where does Yeshua ben Nun's wisdom come from? Hashem. But look what the pasuk says. Ki samach Moshe, because Moshe put his hands on him. V'yishmael kol bnei Yisrael, etc. And all the bnei Yisrael listened to V'gomer, etc. So you see what? Who gets the credit? It's Hashem's wisdom. Who gets the credit? Moshe. He's like the servant who pours out the wine, but he gets the credit. Amalei Rabbi Bar Mahari. I'm Milsa Damri Inchi. Where's this come from? That people say. When a dog is hungry, he'll eat rocks. Other people learn to eat feces, but people say no, they always eat feces. Anyway, so he says what? He says, so a dog when it's hungry will eat rocks. The sieve nefesh sevei tabus and nofes. Here, when a person is satisfied, even the nicest thing, they despise it. They don't care. They couldn't care less. When a person's hungry, when somebody's hungry, everything that's bitter is sweet. And the same thing over here. When the dog's hungry, it'll eat rocks. Amalei Rabba, but you see from a public, but we see, what? We see from the pasuk. Amalei Rabba, Rabba Bar Mari. What about this saying that people say? A bad date palm goes and stays with trees that are fruitless, that produce nothing. In other words, who do bad people connect to? Other bad people. Yeah, everybody's deficient goes to deficient people. Amar le davar is that kasab Torah. He says, what do you mean? Where does this come from? It's written in the Torah. Shani b'nevim, it's repeated in the Nevi'im. And Meshul's b'ksuvin, it's repeated a third time. And the ksuvin here doesn't mean our normal holy ksuvin, it means our unholy ksuvin. It means things that are permissibly written. Usually ksuvin means holy writings. Here ksuvin means unholy writings that have wisdom in them. You'll see in a second. Let's talk about the book of Ben Sira. Okay, Utanam b'masnisa, and we also learned it in the Mishnah. But Tanina b'raisa, and we also learned it in the Brisa. My goodness, I had a lot of sources for this. Kasab Torah, where do we see it in the Torah that bad goes to bad? See by Esav Yishmael. Here is Esav going join up with Yishmael. Another great combination. But okay, yeah, he goes to Yishmael. Yeah, he marries, right. Shalom b'Nevi'im, where we see it repeated again by the Nevi'im. They see by Yislachtu el Yiftach. Yiftach had a very low birth, a very lowly birth. Okay, and Hashem make him all the bad guys. Who do they come to? They all join up with Yiftach. Bad goes to bad. Meshul's b'Ksuvin. It's repeated now. The Ksuvin here is the book of Ben Sira. So Ben Sira is not a holy writing, but it has wisdom in it. It's got some okay things are in there. It's not a holy book. But those books, but it's called ksuvin because you're allowed. It's still you're allowed to write them down. And when it's written there, because it says kol lamino yishkon ladamalo. Every bird goes to its species, and every person to one who's like him. Tanamba Masnisim, we learned it in a Mishnah in Kalim, a very interesting, metaphorically. Whatever is connected, if the nail is connected to the tame, it's tame. For example, so if the nail that we're hanging things on, if it's banged into a candelabra of wood, which is pshutli kli'etz, okay, which is tahar, so also the nail is tahar. But if it's connected to what? If it's connected to a piece of furniture like a table, which is a keli, which is going to become tummy, also the nail becomes tummy. So they learn it metaphorically from the rule of the nail in Tuma. Also, you learn what that the good goes good to good, bad to bad. But Tanina b'Brisa, and we also learned it again in the Brisa. Okay, where Elazar Omer lo lechinam halach zarzis eitzel orev. The zarzi is like a bird that goes to the orev. What? Mifneshu, why does it go? Mifneshu amino. The zarzi goes because that's called orev lamino. So okay, which is a tamei bird, so the zarzir goes there. Amar le Rabba le Rabba bar Mari, b'noyim milsa damri inchi. What about this? That people say, karis chavacha v'la'anach. If you call your friend and he doesn't answer, Rami Guda Rabba Shalibe, take a big wall and knock out, throw it on him. What do you mean? If you give mussar to somebody, tell them to stop sinning, and they're going to sin, then the heck with them, mow them down, let them sin, and the heck with them, beat them down. We'll throw a wall on them. Okay, let him be wicked. Amalei says, what? Where's it from? He says, Yan ti'atich v'lo ti'ata. Since I purified you didn't purify to masach lo pardon me. Since I purified you v'lo ti'hart to masach and you didn't cleanse your from your uncleanliness. You're not going to get cleansed anymore. Heck with you. Okay. Amalei Rabba bar Mari. We know milsa dami inchi. What about this that people say? Beer the shas mine lo tishrei kala. If you drank from a bar of mayim, don't throw dirt into it. If you drink from a place, don't throw dirt into the water hole that you drank from. If you needed something once, don't put it down. Use something. The Nesivos and Mishpat, one of our great, one of my mamish heroes. I don't know if you'd like me very much, but one of my mamish heroes changed my life since I'm 20 years old. Mamish also 20, because that's when I first read it. That's what I read. That's when I first read as Agada. That's what I first read as Agada. It was true, but you're laughing, but it was 20. A lot happened that year. So he says, yeah, true. So he says, listen, if you find one good thing in my book, then please don't knock. If you found one good thing, don't knock my book. Yeah, if you found one good thing, if you found a good thing, don't knock my book. He said, you found something good in it, don't knock it. And he says, he says to me, how do I know it? Because it says, you're not allowed to utterly, you can't abominate the Edom because he's your brother. And you cannot abominate the Mitzri, because you were sojourner in his land, even though the Mitzrim treat us terribly, but you lived, you were a guest, and that's all. You can't say, you knew it, you can't let him in right away, but you let him in, you can't utterly abominate the Mitzri. And you should know something here. Here they bring about the riff an incredible thing, and that you benefited from something. You have to have a kar satov. You can't let it go. You have to have a kar satov. They said the riff one time he got sick, and he it was a certain balabas who had a bathhouse. People didn't have the bath in the house. They had a bathhouse. Balabas said, "Listen, take the bathhouse, use it, heal yourself." And he used it. He was able to heal himself. Sometime later, there was some business reversal, and they had to make a shuma, that evaluate the bathhouse for a collection. And the Rif said, "I want everything to do with it." He says, "I benefited from it, and I benefited from the bathhouse. I benefited from the bathhouse, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to do it." So most people, so you would think he means, well, obviously he means not the bathhouse. He means the
owner.
owner.
But no, he meant
The Talmud said no. He said, if you see that, if you see that he had this kind of thanks to an inanimate object, all the more so you're going to have what
Yeah, Moshe was,
to a person. And I'll tell you what the reason is, because if you're sensitive and you're not a piece of wood, of course you're beholden. Ultimately, of course, everything goes back to Hashem. Yeah, but this is not a chair, and this is not a table. This is the chair that Hashem let me sit on. This is the table that Hashem let me sit on. This is not a shirt. This is the shirt that Hashem put on my back. You understand? And if I wouldn't, and if you don't take your shirt and toss it across the room. We are there. Hey. What do you think? It's a shirt? Not a shirt.
you just learned that from your wife.
No. That's a hey. That's a shirt. That's a shirt that warms you in your back. That's a shirt protects you from the sun. What are you doing? So you're saying, of course, the tov goes down, and here, but I can explain because I'm like, I don't leave it. I don't leave the patient open on the table here. If you don't have that, you think you're going to be thankful to God. You're not. Yeah, if you don't go overboard and you don't respect the object and the object, you're not gonna relate properly to God in the final analysis. And you should know David HaMelech, end of his life, couldn't get warm. Why couldn't he get warm? Why couldn't he get warm? Because he cut the garment of Shaul. Cut the garment of Shaul. So as a punishment, the segula, the segula. What's the garment? It would hold the heat into the segula of the garment. It wasn't given to him. Yeah. You have to be thankful for every single thing. So you have to be thankful for everything. Physical object, yes, that's right. We treat physical objects properly. Okay, one more. I got one more at the end. It says Dura Delina. Hello, Delina. He says what? He says, okay, how can people say, listen, if you help me lift up my thing, I'll help you lift up yours. Where does that come from? Because it said, but we learn it by what? But remember, before they go to the war, Barak, the general, and about Devorah, the Devorah, Barak said to her, if you're going to go with me, I'll go. If you're not going to go with me, I'm not going to go. Yeah, one more. Only Rav Barbari says, where's this from, Darmish? What people say. Karavin and Zutri Legavre. When we were small, we were like big people. When we were little, we were like big. Hashda Kashina Ledadiki. Now that we're big, we're like little. When we were little, we were like big. Okay, we were considered like men. And now that we're grown, we're considered like babies. Amalei says he says like this, because when they left Egypt, because see what's written in the beginning, and when they first came out of Egypt, Hashem was personally leading the light and the fire, was personally leading the Jewish people, and later on when they're already grown up, so to speak. See what's written. I'm sending an angel in front of you, to guard you along the way. So you see what? Yeah, went the other way. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Yeshkoch, everybody. A wonderful Erev Shabbos and Shabbos.
So you know,
Yeah.
the dog.
Yeah.
The second shot in Rashi.
I just mentioned about it.
I have to.
Yeah.
It's paste. That all has only one well. And everybody they went and scrubbed the walls of the well to make sure that so for the second day of the so drives through town and dumps something.
You regret?
So that both sides.